Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to give myself a Christmas present today, being the eve of and all that. I'm going to talk about Night of the Comet. Now I'm aware this video is not going to get a lot of views, not a lot of not a lot of attention, but in having watched the movie again a couple nights ago and remembering that I've memorized the movie, which is unusual for me, and also that there's so much to like with this movie that movies now I think could learn from. Not that I want to see this remade. If it was remade, it would be awful, is my guess. Now, it's PG-13, so anybody who hasn't seen it, it's PG-13. It's not over the top. There's one scene that's kind of gory. It's a dream sequence. Outside of that, it's relatively tame, and there's only one F-bomb, thus the PG-13 rating, which is delivered very well by Willie. So, we start off with Regina, right? At the movie theater, and she's with Larry. And the comet's coming, and the Earth's going to pass through the tail of the comet, and it's going to be fantastic. Well, Regina spends the night with Larry in this steel encased room, right, where it's the walls are made of steel. Superman can see through steel. No, it's the one thing he can't see through. That's lead, you nerd. Lead? Yeah, I mean, he could see through steel like it wasn't there even. Like I honestly memorize the movie. So Regina and Larry, they have their romantic night, if you want to call it romantic. It's not really. It's more of he's giving he's giving her $15. One of the greatest lines in the movie, one of my favorites, is um, if he calls, tell him I'm on my way over and I'm very 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 pissed because he's owed $100, right? And Regina says, "Where's my $15?" And Larry on his way to the door says, "Tell him you're pissed too." So like, you're not getting your $15. Huh? I'm not giving you $15 for making it with me. Everybody knows it'd be worth more than that. That's considered a compliment. Hey, it was the '80s. So Larry reaches the door and he gets bonked with a wrench by a comet zombie as they're labeled. And Larry's done. That's the end of Larry in the movie. So Regina goes through about her day, and she has to eradicate DMK from the Tempest machine. Tempest was a game I never really got into as a kid because I couldn't figure the bloody thing out. I was like, I don't know, where am I supposed to go? What am I? All right, sure. I was young. I was very young at the time. So when this movie came out, I was 11. They'd been in arcades before that. I just never really had any interest. None of my friends played it either, so that didn't help. But yeah, so Regina beats Tempest so that she can get back to sixth place and get DMK off the board. I think that board shows the top 10. For her to get DMK off the board, it's not just about getting sixth. That means she played 4 times that morning to get him out of the top 10. That is how determined she was to get rid of DMK, who we find out later is Danny Mason Keener. I always thought it was funny that he gives all 3 names too, but we'll continue. So Regina goes outside and sees a bunch of red dust, which is what people have turned into since the Earth passed through the tail of the comet. And the special effects for the whole comet thing are cheesy. That's how it works. It's '80s, it's B movie, it's cheesy. But she makes the ride home. She uses Larry's bike. She uses Larry's bike because she gets attacked by the same comet zombie that was in the midst of eating Larry when she came by and rudely interrupted. Which leads to the great line of "Come here." What? I said, "Come here. Come here, your ass." So, and then she basically threatens, "Hey, I've taken self-defense lessons here, so you know what you're dealing with here. I don't want to hurt you." And then she beats the crap out of him. The nice thing with that scene is that because Regina's portrayed as a Valley Girl, and I love Catherine Mary Stewart, but her accent as a Valley Girl is kind of, it's there and then it isn't, and then it's back and then it isn't. Sort of like when she's laying there in the morning and they have like the hero shot of her. There's no bra straps, and then when she sits up 2 seconds later, there's 2 of them. Don't know where they came from. Um, and she's going to see Sam because that's her sister. Her sister's at home with presumably with the stepmother who's there while their dad's off fighting in Honduras with the Green Berets fighting off Sandinistas. They mentioned the Sandinistas with Honduras, but wasn't that El Salvador? It doesn't matter. Guatemala. It doesn't matter. It's Central America. In 1980s, it's all Central America, right? Because yeah, basically telling one country, well, it could have been the Sandinistas and Honduras. It's fine. It's not the important thing, except she did mention, Sam's stepmother mentioned bananaless. Doris. I didn't put Doris on the board because everybody hates Doris. So she goes home and she finds all more people turn into dust. And so she points out to Sam, by the way, everybody's dead. After Sam's like, hey, I don't know if Pep Squad practice is on. I can't get anybody on the phone. She's dressed up for Pep Squad as a cheerleader because she's a cheerleader. And Kelly Maroney really is a champ in this movie that she has to wear the cheerleader outfit for more than half the movie. The movie is clearly designed that Regina, played by Catherine Mary Stewart, is the serious one, and Sam's supposed to be the eye candy. Even though at the time I had a huge crush on Catherine Mary Stewart, you can make an argument for either one. Fine, go for it. So she convinces Sam that everything's gone and everybody's dead and everything's done, everything's stupid. So they're like, well, we're people, so the radio's on. And they're like, hey, that's a DJ. So they go to the radio to find out that the DJ is all automated. Everything's automated. Apparently they automated days in advance. Fine, that's fine. So there's Christmas songs and Christmas stuff to remind us this movie happens at Christmas. They get into the radio station and they find Hector there waiting for them. Hector, played by Robert Beltran, who you would know from Star Trek Voyager. And honestly, every time I watch Voyager and I see Chakotay, I go, that's Hector. To me, he's Hector. To other people, he's Chakotay. To me, he's Hector. Hector. Get real, Hector. So Hector has this moment with Regina and Sam where he talks about how he had been with this girl on the road and a comet zombie tore this girl apart and, you know, it had been eating a half-dead cat and all this other stuff. They don't show it. And sometimes with movies, it's better not to show it. And I understand that for the point of this movie, they didn't have the budget. But it honestly makes it better to hear these stories recounted. Now, to make this work, you have to have good actors recounting what's happened, as Robert Beltran was in the scene. He was very good. So I thought it was very well, and it sets up that these are the three protagonists. Unlike a lot of movies now, it doesn't need 50 million protagonists. It doesn't need 50 million people all coming. Part of what drove me nuts with the Fast and the Furious movies is it adds more and more people. And it's like, okay, who's that? Why is that? What's going on there? What you doing, Speedy? Okay, just a sec. Come here. Did you have a good nap? Did you have a good nap? Okay. You ready? You okay? All right. Did you have a good nap? Hey, I caught you. You didn't get to jump out. So these three they stay together at the radio station for that night, and then Hector goes to check on his family, which is nice. How many times do we watch a post-apocalyptic movie where everybody's dead, and we don't get those moments, right? Where they get to go and find out for sure with their family. So Hector goes home and finds out his family's gone, and he runs into a kid comet zombie, which is kind of played for laughs. There's a scene, too, where Robert wipes out stepping on a guitar. There's no way that's faked. I still think that's an outtake that ended up staying in the movie. The director looked and went, that looks great. We're going to leave that as it is. So, and honestly, that's a good moment. There are a couple of moments that are clearly not right, like where the kid punches a hole in the door, and you can see the door was pre-cut, so he could do that. And there's some good lines there with Hector, like, you're lucky for you, I like kids. He won't shoot the kid, even though shooting the comet zombies is the way to go. Because what's happening is they're slowly turning into red dust. So they go through a process where they're drying out, right? So it's not pretty. And so what we find out in the midst of all this is that, and this is actually from the day before, so I'm rewinding a little bit, is that Sam's on the radio and she's running the radio station, which I would do the same thing. I'm watching this movie as a kid and I'm like, I would totally run that radio station. So Sam is on, and she's like, finals, they're history, they're canceled. The legal drinking age is now 10, but you will have to show ID. Let's be real. Memorized it. So she gets a call on the hit line, 555-4487. Get it? 555 hits. So she gets a call from these doctors in the desert who didn't seem to have enough time to tell her all the information she relays after to Hector and Regina, but it's okay. It's fine. And Regina figures out at this point, too, that Steele's the answer. That Sam spent the night in the lawn storage shed after a fight with Doris. Hector spent the night in the back of his truck with the girl he picked up. And Regina spent the night in the projection booth. So all of these rooms are encased in steel. Don't get into the nuts and bolts of, well, wait a minute, wouldn't there have been a windshield? Don't worry about any of that. It's all fine. So they're all encased in steel. They're all fine. So the doctors that have called them are from this think tank, which I'm not sure why it's referred to as a think tank, but okay, fine. It would have been like a research facility, but they knew what the comet was going to do. The problem is, as we learned from Audrey later, Audrey's introduced with Dr. Carter. Dr. Carter's in charge of this whole thing, that they're infected and they're slowly turning. And it's a mild infection they have, so they're turning slowly, although she's finding that the condition accelerates. She's having trouble with spelling. Very simple spelling is eluding her, as it eludes me at times too. So maybe I've been infected by the comet. Who knows? Maybe I'm drying out. That would explain why I keep getting wrinkles. So Audrey doesn't want to bring survivors back. They want to bring survivors back because they want to come up with a serum, with an antidote for the fact that they're gradually turning into dust. And so the line goes dead with Sam, but they let Sam know, hey, it's dangerous to be out there. So Sam has this really interesting nightmare about cops that turn out to be comet zombies. And she wakes up and she ends up finding out she's still in the nightmare. The cop's still there. So she has a screech that brings Hector running. And there's Regina right there to, hold her and everything. So that's all kind of scary. But then Hector, as I said, goes home to find out his mother's no longer with us. And Regina and Sam, they do what teenage girls would do. They head to the mall, right? So they head to the mall and they just start taking stuff because there's nobody there, or so they think. They're being watched by, it's a group of 4. Willie's in charge. They could have given him a more threatening name than Willie, but it's fine. These guys are just nameless. And you see them all wearing sunglasses. Sunglasses are a tip-off in this movie. Something's wrong. If somebody's wearing sunglasses in this movie, they're not Corey Hart. They're a comet zombie. It's easy to not be able to differentiate the two. The difference is Corey Hart's not drying up and turning into red dust. So these girls end up having this big gunfight with the guys with the sunglasses. Regina takes a hostage. Willie lets her know, I can't have you holding one of my people hostage. And so he shoots his ally, who's the hostage, and she yells, you're crazy. And he says, I'm not crazy, I just don't give up. And there's the F-bomb in the movie. So that's it for those. Those are all done. You would think there'd be more when the entire world is gone, but you'd be wrong. So now they're captive, right? So they chain them up and they put them on a pallet, and they're lifting and lowering the pallet on a forklift. And turns out they were stock boys. Now they own the store the American way. And then this happens. What are you talking about? Why, I'm talking about you coming in here and ripping us off. So, and then it's, do you want us to pay for it or what? And one of the greatest lines ever is he takes the sunglasses off and you can see like his eye sockets are drying out and everything. And he says, you wouldn't believe what we want from you in your worst nightmare. You wouldn't believe. One of the best lines. So he plays Russian roulette. And as he gets to the bullet that's going to finally do them in, the doctors who've been looking for them, thankfully heavily armed doctors, kill all of the comet zombies. And so the girls are saved. The funny part is, Sam's like, we're not with these guys. We just met them an hour ago. Like, anybody would look and go, those girls that are chained up and they're playing Russian roulette with them, do you think they're friends? Nobody's going to think that. It's fine, Sam. You didn't need to explain. But Sam has a rash. She's absolutely stressed out. When she gets stressed out, she has a rash. Absolutely identify with Samantha on this one. Or maybe Kelly Maroney gets that too. So they decide, we're going to take Regina back. We're not going to take Sam, because clearly she's infected. Audrey lies and goes, oh yeah, there's no point in taking her back. So she stays there with the douchebag doctor, Oscar. I can't remember the full name, but Oscar stays with her. And so she gives a needle to Sam that makes her pass out. And Oscar says to Audrey, I'm just glad it was painless. And she's like, what do you expect me to do, Oscar? Go for my gun? Don't be ridiculous. And then she shoots him. Oscar's dead. So Audrey now has a out cold Sam, and we move on. Regina is taken away to the facility where all the doctors are, and she meets Dr. Carter, who's kind of a dick to her. And he basically reveals, yeah, your sister's dead. She was infected, and I can assure you it was quite painless. And this is where Regina realizes something's wrong. This isn't right. She knows her sister wasn't infected. She knows her sister was fine. So something's not computing here. So Dr. Carter's called out for whatever reason. And then this other doctor who's just a douchebag. I don't even remember his name. It doesn't matter. Alan. think it's Alan. Oh, I'm going to drop it once, Alan. I think it's Alan. So Alan's a douche, and he comes in and finds that Regina's taken this very expensive electronic equipment, which is a monitor from 1983. So it's when I hear this very expensive electronic equipment, I get a good laugh out of it every time. So Regina uses the keyboard. Keyboards had a lot more weight and heft to them back in the early 80s. And she smacks this doctor over the head with it, and she goes looking around. So she finds out that they're taking blood from people, and because she walks into this lab where they've made people brain dead, and they're just manufacturing blood now. That's all they do for this antidote that they're hoping to get in what's going to be hours. So they thought they had weeks, but they have hours before they turn, and when they turn, they become that zombie type. They're not thinking straight, and so that happens. So Dr. Carter has started to put on the sunglasses, started to act a little off. Something's definitely wrong with Dr. Carter, and Regina picks up on that as well. Now, Hector shows up. Hector's outside of the facility, and Heck Gomez, he introduces himself as to the guy at the gate, which I thought was great. He's like, "Hey, do you like girls?" And it's delivered. It's the scene that makes the guy who's the guard look kind of like a creep. And it's like Hector using the most obvious way to, hey, come over here and look at this girl. So he opens up the trunk of this car. Absolutely beautiful Cadillac he's driving, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous car. Although my wife pointed out, hey, if they're worried about Comet zombies, why is he driving a convertible? Which is a good point. But, yeah, Samantha's in the trunk. And he's like, she's dead. She ain't dead. See, this doctor shot her up with sodium pentothal to make this guy think she was dead. And then Sam opens her eyes and pulls the guard down, and he slams the trunk on the guy and says also they wouldn't suck her blood out. So and swears on top of that too. So Hector and Sam are now in the facility, right? The guy opened the gate. They knocked him out. Maybe they murdered him. I don't know. They knocked him out. Not really important. They know they have to go get Regina at this point. So they're in now, and they're starting their chaos. Regina, she escapes once she's caught again. She gets a good slap in the face for that. That slap, you can feel that. But she escapes again because they're incompetent. They're not meant to hold hostages. So as soon as she's alone with one guy, she just knocks him down, knocks him out, and takes his gun. So easy peasy. She finds these two nurses, I assume they're nurses, who are trying to give gas to these kids. And they've told the kids they're going to see Santa. And Regina says, that's so sick. Sam runs in with, hey! And Regina turns around and fires her gun, because that's what you do if you all of a sudden hear somebody yelling behind you. Now, what Sam did before this was she went down to the basement, which not very well protected at all. But again, they're not made as a security firm or as a military installation. So it's okay that their security's a little lax, right? They're not expecting to have any kind of fight in here. So she turned the power off. And so now you're running on just your auxiliary power. But what that does is it turns off the life support. So the blood that they're getting from these people, done. Those people expire. Dr. Carter's seen in the room. You can give up if you want to, Wilson. There you go, Wilson. But we've still got the kids and that girl. So he's bat crap crazy at this point. He's completely off his rocker. And Dr. Carter's played by an actor. When you see him in this movie, you're like, I've seen him in so many 80s things, if you're old like me. So what happens is, oh, and I forgot to mention with Hector, how did Hector get here? Audrey meets Hector at the radio station. She knows Hector's going back to the radio station. He's all dressed up like Santa Claus. And she's left notes for him on exactly what the doctors are doing and what the plan is. She didn't write them correctly. She even says, I think I misspelled some of it. She offers him a gun. He says, no thanks, I have one. She says, perfect Christmas present this year. I'm going to miss Christmas permanently. Then she gives herself a needle, which kills her. So she commits suicide, which is the smartest thing anybody in this movie does. That's not named Regina, Sam, or Hector. Smartest thing anybody can do is you realize that you've been exposed. There is no solving this. And so Hector, armed with all of the information he needs to go in and take down Carter's operation, he goes in and you can see him putting dynamite underneath one of the vehicles. And so we know that's not going to end well for that vehicle. So Sam and Regina, they get together with the kids. They take the girls that were going to give them the gas mask and, you know, get them brain dead and harvest their blood. And they tie them up and they give them the laughing gas. And they have a sign right there that says going to see Santa Claus. So Carter and Wilson come in and find the girls there, and they're laughing. And now laughing gas doesn't necessarily make you laugh. I had nitrous oxide many times at the dentist. I never laughed and giggled. But it's funny because they're laughing. And Wilson says, what about them? And Dr. Carter says, screw them. And when he says that, they both start laughing hysterically, which for some reason I always thought was a really good inclusion and a nice little moment in there, that they laugh at him saying, screw them. So now they're going back topside. They're trying to get out, right? With the kids now. They've got the kids. Regina has the little girl's bunny. She doesn't like that Regina has the bunny. So Carter and Wilson follow them out. So Hector starts to drive off with the car and then looks back at the doctors and says, hey, think tank, huh? Think over this, and gives them the finger. And he starts talking to them, making sure the kids cover their eyes first, of course. Carter gets in the vehicle with Wilson. Wilson goes, is that gas I smell? So he won't turn it on. And so Carter, who's now turned, he's gone full-on zombie, turns on the vehicle and it explodes. And it is rigged to explode. It is 80s explosion. It's great. And so that allows Hector, Sam, and Regina to get away after one final scare. There was a doctor that had transitioned. They mentioned this earlier in the movie, so it's a payoff. Where Wilson had mentioned that this doctor had gone, probably transitioned, and he was topside, meaning he was on the surface. And so when this doctor shows up that has turned and he tries to get the little girl out of the back seat of the car, they end up having to shoot him, and then they get away. It's a nice payoff for kind of what looks like a throwaway line earlier in the movie, which is why I think this movie's so well done. There's nothing that's set up at any point in this movie that doesn't pay off. There's no storyline you look at and go, well, that didn't go anywhere. Every single storyline pays off. They don't have an exorbitant amount of characters. There's not a lot of violence in it. There's not a lot of gore in it. It doesn't rely on a lot of things that other movies might. I think there's a lot that can be learned from this movie. Hey, Bunny, what do you think? And again, you know, it's got a 6.4 on IMDb. It's not going to make anybody forget Godfather, right? It's not going to make anybody forget really, really great movies. It's got a score of 79% currently on Rotten Tomatoes, 33 reviews. And the audience scores 57%, which is not great. I'm not sure why that audience score isn't higher. I can try to make that higher myself. But I really enjoy the movie. And I really today wanted to talk about it. Because for many, many years, this has been the movie that was like one of my absolute favorites above all else. And I've never done a video where I just talk about it. And again, reciting as many lines as possible along the way. So there you go. Can you not? Can you not? And so, yeah, a really, really good movie. Greatly enjoy it. Do I have to put a bunny up there? Just stop. So, yeah, really, really good movie. Greatly enjoy it. Everybody does a great job in it. And so my own Christmas present to me is making a video on this. Because if you told me, say 6 years ago, by the way, you're going to be making a video on Night of the Comet and somebody's going to watch it, I would be like, that's not going to happen. So the idea that even hundreds of people might watch this, absolutely foreign to me as recently as 6 years ago. Which shows how quickly things can change. I'm holding in my hands something that shows how quickly things can change. We had 2 bunnies. Now we have more. So, and just to show that, yeah, we do take them out of the little play area upstairs. That's just the home base. And I let them run around a little bit down here, but I have to watch because of cords, don't I? So there you go. If you haven't seen it, I can recommend it. If you've seen it, let me know why you love it in the comment section below. But yeah, this is a video for me on this shirt. This is my own present to myself. And it's a 24-minute present to myself, so not bad. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. I hope everybody has a good holiday. And for those who are not anticipating have a good holiday, here's the good news. 8 days from now, she's all done. And then you move into January where, of course, there's that blasé feeling that people get in January as well. So we'll definitely be doing videos in January on that nature as well, because Again, I don't think there's enough talked about it. Like every year you have like Bell Let's Talk and you have this day and that day for these companies, but it needs to be a daily thing. It needs to not just be one day a year we go, hey, it sucks people are down, let's talk about it. And then it's gone, right? And it shouldn't just be like a corporate thing either. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for all your support from me and from Jet. Yeah, the name stuck. From me and from Jet, thank you guys so much for all your support. If you haven't already hit like and subscribe, go ahead and do so. And hey, it is a lot of fun talking about Night of the Comet. I could do a video every day where I talk about something else from this movie, but I'll leave it at this. Thanks again. I'll talk to you guys soon.